Helldivers 2 is beautiful.
Sweet liberty!
I'm not even talking about the variety of planets, enemies, or explosions, all of which look nice too. Especially the explosions. Helldivers 2 is beautiful to me because it dares to be something that I feel like a lot of games aren't anymore. When I first started playing Helldivers 2, I was overwhelmed, you know? There were too many systems, too many currencies. I didn't know how to find a lobby or if the game even had a lobby system. And when I was in-game, the movement felt heavy, weapons were hard to control, and the game didn't try to ease me in at all. It had me run through the pretty funny tutorial that taught me the basics, then loaded me into a pod and shot me up into space to join the fight for Super Earth. And I didn't get it. Not at first.
Lost and sending replacement.
With the recent release of the Xbox version of the game, I was given a dangly keychain to keep my attention, since I'm a monkey, in the form of a Halo crossover. And you know what? It worked. I stuck with the game long enough for the guiding talons of managed democracy to get their hooks into my brain, and from that day on, I was free. To set the stage, everything that Helldivers 2 does feels like the opposite of what most big shooters are told to do. Most games try to make movement fast, fluid, and sort of frictionless, you know? Like, it's the era of slide canceling, movement tech, and twitchy movement. It's probably what a lot of researchers and publishers think is the safest direction for their games. In Helldivers 2, though, movement is heavy. The game doesn't really even have a slide mechanic. When you're running and you hit the crouch button, you instead just transition from sprinting into a crouch stance, and you're weighed down and fairly vulnerable when it happens.
Deploying now.
That's not to say that you're a lumbering mess. You can definitely move about if you have the right armor, but escaping from combat or running around isn't a slip and slide Call of Duty match. It's a bit more like my dog running away from me when I tell him it's time for a bath. Also, you know how most games have this sort of unspoken magic in how their reloads work? You know, you shoot a few bullets, you reload, and somehow the leftover rounds in that magazine magically teleport into your reserve ammo? Well, Helldivers 2 doesn't do that. If you ditch half a magazine of ammo, you're gonna lose all that remaining ammunition because you just threw it away. And that small thing kinda changes everything because suddenly reloading becomes a tactical choice. And impulse reloading after firing a couple of shots is a habit I had to break really early on. So I'll give you an example of how this actually adds a bit of richness to the combat experience. Let's say I have maybe half a magazine of ammo left in my LMG, and I see a massive swarm of bugs coming at me over the ridge. A half-loaded LMG still is a lot of ammo, but it's not going to be enough to cull this horde of bugs. There's too many of them. So do I risk running dry mid-fight to use up the ammo and then try to reload while all the bugs are on top of me? Or do I throw away all of those perfectly good and valuable bullets just to make sure that I'm ready with a fully loaded LMG? That one tiny moment becomes a tactical decision I have to make in combat that adds richness to the experience that you wouldn't get in other big games, because yeah, just reload. Now listen, I'm not saying like, oh my god guys, it's crazy, Helldivers invented how real life works. But what I am saying is Helldivers decides to go with a more clunky, unconventional reload system for games, just to add more tactical moments of choice during the moment-to-moment gameplay. But Helldivers isn't just the game with the reload mechanic, you know? It goes deeper than that. Helldivers doesn't even show you the exact ammo count that your weapon has. Instead, you only get this little visual indicator on how many magazines you have left and roughly how full your magazine is, but not an exact count. If you want to see the specific amount of bullets you have left, you have to hold the reload button, which has your bullet count right there. It's this small thing, but it adds this layer of immersion and tension, you know, like a scene from a movie where you pop out the magazine to see how many shots you have left and then you slam it back into the gun and keep firing. It feels more in the moment and it adds this texture to the combat experience. And then there's the weapons themselves and how they function, because this game balances its weaponry in a really creative way that I don't see in a lot of other games. In most shooters, you know how your gun is like locked to the center of the screen, no matter what it is, pistol, rifle, LMG, and that's not even me criticizing games, it's just a funny byproduct of first-person shooters. Like you're whipping around a massive anti-tank rifle the size of a bus. Well, Helldivers 2 tries to simulate the weight and length of a weapon as a balancing tool. In Helldivers 2, when you look about, there's this little circle that's separate from your crosshair. That circle is where your bullets go when you fire your weapon. If you're holding an SMG, that circle stays relatively close to the center of the screen. It's responsive, same with the pistols. But if you're holding a rifle, maybe lags a bit more, but it's manageable. But if you're lugging around a massive belt-fed machine gun or a rocket launcher or anti-material rifle, that little circle is gonna lag, because those weapons are big, they're long, they're heavy. Whip your aim about too fast and the weapon needs a little bit of time to catch up to the center of the screen. It makes heavy weapons actually feel heavy. It forces you to slow down, plan, and commit to your shots with these things. Now, if you crouch or lay down, your little Helldiver dude has an easier time controlling the weapon's recoil. So sometimes the best strategy for a heavy weapon is literally just laying down, bracing yourself, and just sitting there stationary. But the kind of clunky inconvenience of these super heavy, hard-hitting weapons forces me to scan my environment and the level design for good encampment positions to set up when I'm planning to use LMGs. I've then got to plan my escape route for when the bugs inevitably get too close to my encampment, and then I'll need to pack it up and begin running around with an SMG, and it's just brilliant design, I think. Like, Helldivers 2 doesn't just balance weapons with damage numbers or what range they're good at. It balances weapons with their weight and how easy they are to actually use. I don't know, that's kind of cool, right? Then there's the friendly fire. Most games turn this off because they want less friction. They feel like it makes the game too punishing and they want the games to be easy and accessible. I totally understand, I'm not even criticizing that. What I think is interesting though about Helldivers 2 is friendly fire is always on with no exceptions. But then I'd start to be a little bit more careful, and that's the point, man. Friendly fire forced me to be aware of my team and be more aware of my environment. It makes every bullet, grenade, or barrel dangerous, whether it's from an enemy or a friend. Friendly fire trained me to pay attention to not just the enemies, but to my squad's positioning, their body language, and scanning the environment for any potential hazards. It made my brain more engaged with the level design and enemy positioning. What's also cool is sometimes the friendly fire adds like this layer of emergent difficulty to combat situations. Like sometimes I'd have to disengage from enemies and retreat to a new angle because if I opened fire on them, I'd hit my teammate on the other side. And when accidents do happen in Helldivers 2, they're usually really sudden and funny. Like, I'll never forget the first time that I was caught in the epicenter of an orbital strike that a buddy called in, or when my head was severed from my body because my auto turret tried to kill an enemy that was right behind me. Friendly fire is just like this design choice that most studios would never risk. But Helldivers 2 doubles down on it, and it adds richness and texture and depth to the gameplay experience. And it makes Helldivers 2 feel more cohesive. Like, any form of damage is damage. It makes the world more dangerous, makes the environments more engaging, and it makes my brain more engaged with the game as a result. The same goes for stratagems. So if you didn't know, stratagems are like these attacks that you can order in, like an airstrike or a sentry gun or a pack of supplies. You select the ones that you want before each mission, and to call them in, it just involves a little game of D-pad button mashing to make the request, and then you're good to go. You may think those button combos are kind of dumb and overly complicated. Like, why don't they just make it one button like a COD kill streak? And it's because in the heat of the moment, punching in those combos is hella stressful, man. Like, you're frantically tapping directions on your D-pad while the bugs are closing in, praying that you don't screw up. Sometimes you do screw up, and then you gotta start over, and you're running, and your hands are shaking, panic's rising, and then you finally input the code correctly, and you throw that stratagem down just in the nick of time. It's this feeling that can't be replicated by just making it one button press. You know, I got my little data pad up, and I'm actually inputting the coordinates myself. You know, like calling in firing support on these coordinates. Most studios would have streamlined this. One button press, easy. Helldivers 2 doesn't. It lets that clumsiness and the clunkiness of it be part of the gameplay experience. And that decision creates truly unforgettable moments. Sometimes you don't have to just make the core gameplay super easy and then crank up enemy damage or make you do less damage. Sometimes it's about adding actual mechanics to the game that can create their own difficulty, friction for the player to overcome and work within. And the beauty of Helldivers 2 isn't just in the mechanics, it's also in the community storytelling. So other live service games rely on cutscenes, voice acting, scripted seasons, etc. That feels kind of like a lot of work to keep the constant treadmill of content coming with narrative context, you know? But Helldivers 2 actually feels like an organic, living, breathing game. Helldivers 2 has the Galactic War map, this huge table where factions push and pull, and the developers have these metaphorical levers that they can pull behind the scenes to kind of shift the tide of conflict. You know, you got one week the Terminids are surging towards Super Earth, taking over certain planets, which opens up missions on those planets that allow you to try to go in and liberate it. Another week, the automatons dig in on their own planets, create these defensive lines, which spawns its own set of missions, and you gotta break through their lines of defense to get to a planet that they're in control of. Sometimes entirely new factions will appear, and the brilliance is that the story of Helldivers 2 isn't told to us, it's made by us. The missions we win, the planets we lose, the weeks where victory feels impossible, and then we succeed or fail. So, have you ever heard of Malevolent Creek? Veterans in the Helldivers 2 community talk about it like it was a real battle. What it was this brutal and frustrating, sort of bullshit period at the launch of the game where the Helldivers 2 community was still learning the game. And Malevolent Creek was this planet that was just unusually difficult. The Helldivers 2 community, though, didn't quit. They kept throwing their bodies at Malevolent Creek over and over and over again. Maybe it was just for the memes, who knows, but eventually the community successfully liberated the planet. Now, that period in the game's history is legend. It's lore. Veteran players tell the story of Malevolent Creek to new recruits, like Vietnam war vets passing down stories through generations. I never participated in Malevolent Creek, but I can feel the historical weight of it in the game's player base. And that's something organic. It was an in-game story event told just via the game's mechanics and social systems. And I think that's beautiful. But you know what's also beautiful? Even the monetization of this game shows restraint. Helldivers 2 has battle passes. They're called Warbonds, and Warbonds have everything from helmets to armor to weapons, stratagems, and so on. They're important to have because the stuff in them genuinely makes a difference, so I guess they're kind of like a combination of a battle pass and a progression system. Warbonds cost super credits, and super credits are, of course, purchasable with real money. But you can also find super credits in the missions themselves, usually only in small amounts, like 10 super credits here, 10 there. But if you want, you can grind and earn every Warbond in the game for free. See this guy here? Control Group is a Warbond that I bought with credits I found in the field. I didn't spend a dime on this. And this is a level of generosity that we don't see a lot these days. It's a little grindy, sure, but it's fair. This feels almost radical in how pro player it is. Like, I don't know how to describe it. When I first learned that you could actually farm super credits in this game, I didn't believe it. I thought there was a catch. No, you're lying. That's not what video games are. Video games are things that you buy so that you can spend money in. But no, this is just how Helldivers 2's monetization works, and it's shockingly pro-consumer. Then there's the crossovers. This is where most live service games just lose their identity. I'm a strong believer that good gameplay is not better or more important than a strong vibe and fantasy, you know? In my opinion, they're kind of equal to each other. Like, good gameplay that fits and empowers a good, strong combat fantasy just makes for a better game for all. I loved Rainbow Six Siege because it was this SWAT game with really fun gameplay. But now it's just the really fun gameplay. It's not really a SWAT game anymore, and I just kind of wanted to play the SWAT game, you know? And I'm sure you all have games where you feel the same way. You feel like you just can't get into them because they're not the same anymore. Well, Helldivers 2 so far has been unusually clever in how it's handled its crossovers. The Hellghast from Killzone were the first ever crossover added to Helldivers 2, and you know what? The Hellghast from Killzone, yeah, they kind of look like Helldivers a little bit. It also helps that their lore absolutely feels like something ripped out of Helldivers. Now for Halo, you'd think the obvious answer would be throwing Master Chief or Spartans into Helldivers 2, and that would kind of look out of place. Like, I love Master Chief, I love Spartans, but they draw too much aesthetic attention, and it would kind of distract you from the world. But ODSTs? It's actually an inspired choice. Not only does the armor of an ODST feel more grounded and actually blend in relatively seamlessly to the world of Helldivers, the Helljumpers are kind of cousins to the Helldivers already, aren't they? What impressed me most, though, about this ODST crossover was the level of care put into it. It would have been super easy for them to just port over some high-quality assets from Halo 5 and Halo Infinite, right? What they did was they built all new assets from scratch that look like Halo 3 ODST assets. You know, the game from the Xbox 360 generation. So things like the assault rifle, the silenced SMG, the Magnum, the armor sets, they all look like super high-quality, very polished 4K recreations of those old 360 assets. And they look so good, man. Like, this assault rifle makes me want to weep. This is a level of respect and taste that I don't see in a lot of other crossovers from big games. Like, this here is the best the Halo shotgun has ever looked, and man, it makes me so sad that it's not in the current Halo game. What's cool is the lead of Arrowhead, he went on Reddit and actually explained the philosophy that the studio has towards crossovers to the Helldivers 2 community. With this nice little image here, it shows what their line is for appropriate and not appropriate crossovers. The level of restraint to say, no, clone troopers from Star Wars are too far. When there's a crossover to Helldivers 2, they don't want it to distract from the game. They want it to feel very organic, very seamless to Helldivers 2. Because as time goes on and more stuff is added to the game, they don't want to lose the soul of the game. So while other first-person shooters are just literally adding Beavis and Butthead to the game, Helldivers 2 is thinking about the long-term ramifications of muddying up its aesthetic and if it will eventually dilute the soul of the game. It makes Helldivers 2 stand tall in a sea of live service games that immediately sell their souls for some quick cash, and I haven't even scratched the surface, but that's kind of why I think Helldivers 2 is so beautiful. It's not a game that's trying to please everyone. It's clunky, it's chaotic, it's really punishing, and it's sometimes hilarious, but all of these things make it deeply rewarding when you get good at it. It's a game that trusts us, the players, to adapt to the rules that it laid out. It expects us to stumble, to panic, to fail, and then to eventually triumph once we get the rules. What makes Helldivers 2 so addictive isn't just one specific thing, like the gameplay or how it's handling crossovers. It's the confidence in its own design that the whole game's design ethos has. Helldivers 2 knows what it is, and it knows what it has to offer is unique and not like other shooters on the market. And by not compromising, it made itself stand out. I love this game, and I'm hoping to make videos on it, so I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. But yeah,